Hi, my name is Sean Mcgrath, founder of WideAwakeNews.com, founder of Wide Awake News Radio, heard exclusively on the Rinse Radio Network. I just finished an interview with RT, Russia Today, from their Moscow studio. It's 10:30 local time p.m., 8 a.m. in the morning in Moscow. And the question was everything to do about energy resources and the fact that Russia controls 30% of the natural gas flow into Western Europe and the United States, promising to expand exports, which is an impossibility at this point. I'll get into that more in a minute. But the United States promising to step up export and step up production in order to offset the energy that potentially could be lost because of this situation in Ukraine and Crimea, namely. Now, first of all, we have no capacity, right, to liquefy natural gas. If my investigation here is accurate, we have one plant, and it's in Alaska, that can liquefy natural gas, and that gas goes to Japan. Currently, there's 7 on the books that have been approved. One in the Gulf of Mexico is under construction. It's going to take decades for the United States to ever get to the point where it can send currently what Russia is sending to Europe to stave off any kind of catastrophe because of their loss of energy resources from Russia. But let's be clear, and this is what I tried to express in this interview, especially the post interview, which is a written form they'll put out on their website. We're talking about energy resources today, right? We're talking about Russia, and it's 34% of the gas that supplies or that flows into Europe is from Russia. But that isn't why Obama is coming out today pledging more support. That isn't why we're having the Wall Street Journal and we're having New York Times write articles about, can the United States offset the European demand for natural gas if Russia is taken out as a player. This is a symptom. This is a result of things that have happened in our recent past, and has happened in Ukraine and Crimea. We can never forget this to look back at the cause of current events, right? What is the reason we're talking about natural gas? What is the reason we're talking about collapsing the economy of Europe because of energy? And let's not kid ourselves. Economies run on energy. Energy is money. Money, energy, interchangeable in a conversation. You don't have a modern economy without the free flow of energy. And in most cases, assuredly in the case of the United States, very, very cheap energy. So why are we here? Why are we here talking about this today? It isn't because Russia woke up today and decided, I'm going to screw Europe and increase the price by 80% of natural gas. This was a plan hatched a long time ago. Look at the model. Look at the model that has happened over the years since this channel's been here, since we've been talking about it on Wide Awake News and Wide Awake News Radio. We've seen the European Union, right, being overrun and taken over by what? Technocrats. Technocrats come into these peripheral nations or these peripheral countries in Europe, and they implement through the IMF and through other things like the European Stability Mechanism and these other technocratic means to an end. And the end is total, complete, and domination of economies of these European nations, total evisceration of the sovereignty of these nations, total power and control giving over to technocrats at the International Monetary Fund, and fill in the blank. At the end of the day, you need to know this: bankers, bankers are the ones who are pushing for everything that we see. Why? Because they're trying to grab hold of power outside, or grab power during chaotic events. Chaos is awesome for bankers. Chaos creates opportunities for bankers. And again, I'm not talking about your mom and pop down the street. I'm not talking about your regional savings and loan. I'm talking about these too big to fail institutions that are larger than ever before. It blows my mind how average people in this country cannot see what's going on. We're destabilizing the world. We're doing it on behalf of banks. We're making sure that the right banks survive and become larger, and the wrong banks fail and get swept into the fold of these too big to fails, and their assets become too big to fail assets, their failure of these institutions become our failure. And at the end of the day, we're starting wars around the world to expand the riches of a bunch of corporate interests, corporate special interests that we are calling banksters. And they are just that. Crimea situation, it isn't about energy. It's about power. It's about control. Energy is a symptom. Energy is a result of the crisis that is at hand. What caused it? How about 80 non-government agencies or quasi-government agencies, programs going on to destabilize the Ukraine government? This is why we're in the situation we're at now. An elected government that is toppled. I'm not saying the government wasn't corrupt. We know Eastern Europe is corrupt, but the United States in there spending billions of your dollars, your money, spending it to destabilize that country so we can have the current crisis we're in now. The IMF sitting there licking its chops, waiting for this nation of Ukraine to crumble so it can swoop in, promise aid, turn around, give a bunch of money that doesn't exist in the first place to a bunch of bankers who are holding debt that should be eradicated or defaulted on in the first place, sitting there waiting to implement austerity onto the people of Ukraine, take their natural resources, take their sovereignty, and sweep them into the European Union, and giving NATO one more little inch closer toward Russia. Now, this isn't me making this up. This isn't me guessing. This is the game plan that has unfolded time and time again over the last several years inside of Europe, right? Look at Greece. Greece, who's had one bailout after another. Greece, who's lost their sovereignty and given it over to the International Monetary Fund, given it over to technocrats. Greece, who has been promised prosperity if it just gave up everything, right? They're on the verge of needing yet another bailout. We saw it in Cyprus when people were taking a haircut, when bailouts turned into bail-ins. It isn't about energy today. It isn't about the hot topics of the day. It's about what brought us here. Because what brought us here isn't going to be fixed by giving them power money junkies even more power and more money. It's going to continue to get worse. This is why we talk about Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Citi, and all these other two big institutions that, hat in hand in 2008, asked for you to save them. And if you didn't, they were going to crash everything. We did it without our consent, without our approval, and most assuredly, the vast majority of the people in this country didn't want this to happen, but it did anyway. Here we come towards the end of yet another president's run, and we're going to have the same crisis events come to before us, and we're going to be asked again to give up more of our sovereignty, more of our power, more of our future, more of our finances, more control over our lives, and more stability on this planet. We're going to be asked to give it all up so we can make bankers even more rich. It again boggles my mind how RT can sit there and ask me questions today and be surprised when I give answers about what happened 5 years ago, what happened 8 years ago. I'm giving those answers because it's very, very relevant. We're going to give this power over, and we're going to end up nothing but debt slaves to these criminals, absolute criminals. It isn't even guesswork at this point. They pay fines because they launder money for drug dealers. They run operations around this planet to destabilize, and they're using our men, our women, our armed forces, our reputation, our sovereignty, our power, and our will. They're using us like we're nothing but plebes, like we're fodder for them to throw in front of targets so that they can gain more and more power. The International Monetary Fund, the Federal Reserve Bank, the Bank of England, this cabal of international globalist bankers are not going to stop until they have ultimate power, and they're well on the way to doing just that. Wake up and realize that we talk about hot button issues of the day. We need to know what brought us here. Stories are attached. That's all I got.